Hello, my name is Rob Pearson, and I'm here to talk about how to help your users fall into the pit of success. It's great to be back at DDD Brisbane. I missed last year, I was moving, so I wasn't able to make it. But this year, I bought an early bird ticket, and then I was fortunate enough to have my talk voted in. So thank you to everybody who voted for me, and I'm very happy, I'm very proud to be here, be part of this great event. And I really think that DDD Brisbane is one of the better events sort of available around. It's community driven, and big kudos to the organizers who put it on year after year. So who am I? I'm a Canadian and I'm an Australian. So if you've never spoken to me or you've never seen me talk, that's why I sound funny. And I'm a developer, but I'm not a designer. And I mention that because this kind of is a design-oriented talk, but I am a developer, I write code just like most of us in the audience. But that said, I love product development and building products. I love working with customers and customer support, and I love Apple products. And I think that gives me an appreciation of design. I've always liked working on customer-focused things, interactive visual things. So I think it's a good fit. And I work at Octopus Deploy. I mention that just because I've learned a lot working at Octopus, and a lot of the examples throughout the talk are based on some of the things that I've learned from the past. And I want to be clear that it's not a sales pitch. Personally, I hate it when people do sales pitches in their presentations almost as much as I hate manual error-prone deployments until I found Octopus Deploy. So seriously, there's a handful of us from Octopus here, so if you have any questions about Octopus, we're happy to chat in the hallways or tonight. So I want to kick things off by asking, have you ever tried an app where it was so hard to use that you deleted it within minutes? And I remember when the iOS App Store first started, and even the Android, there's so many apps, it was so exciting. People were buying them, even trying the free ones. And you would just download a whole bunch. And there are a couple of good ones, but you would just delete the rest, just abandon them. And nowadays, I think the same is still true. Still true with mobile, where there's so many apps. But you also have websites where e-commerce stores that if you hit a point and it's complicated or it's just too much work, you just abandon it. You don't carry through. And that makes it really difficult. We all build apps, so it's kind of hard when people give up or just push these things, push our hard work away so quickly. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And so you probably saw my little try with Vim. Every once in a while, I sort of think that I'm going to try and relearn Vim. I'll learn all the shortcuts and stuff. And me trying to exit looks something very similar to that. So I just sort of quit and go back to my normal editor. And right now I'm using Visual Studio Code. So what am I going to talk about today? 4 things. First, what is the pit of success and why is it important? Second, what is the aha moment for your apps and how do we find it? Third, how do we sell our customers on reaching this aha moment? And fourth, how do we motivate our customers to be successful? How do we motivate for success? So let's get started. First up, what is the pit of success and why do we want our customers to fall into it? First, I want to be clear that the pit of success is not a fiery pit of hell. I think we've all worked with customers and just people around who aren't so nice. And we probably wouldn't be too upset if they fell in a fiery pit, but that's not this talk. It might be a good idea for somebody for next year, so maybe look for that one. So what is the pit of success? We want our customers to be happy. We want them to be successful. The pit of success is making our apps so easy that they can almost accidentally be successful. It's almost as if they're walking along and there's this giant pit that represents success. And we build our apps so well that it's almost impossible for them not to fall into it. We need to build that, or that's building apps that are easy to use simple and intuitive. This is user onboarding. It's the process of helping a new customer get started so they are successful. And very often, that puts them on the path to happiness and paying for your service, purchasing it, or even subscribing. And user onboarding is a really broad topic. Everything from awareness, marketing, design, development, through even to support. There's many, many touch points. But this talk is focused on what we sort of have control over. We're hands-on, the design and the development. So I won't be talking about sort of marketing or conversion, or as much about conversion, but it's the things that we control within our sphere of influence. So why? Why is this important? First and foremost, we want to build successful customers. We build apps to solve problems and help people. And so if we build products, the result of that is successful customers are more likely to purchase or subscribe to our products and services. And often that will lead to less support, which is a good thing. And if you think about it, think of the products that you just absolutely love, apps, services, etc. Often, if there's apps that you love, you tell people about it. So, like I love Snagit. It's such a handy utility. It's another Mac utility. PaySpot. I'm happy to tell just about anybody how that can help you. And so there's a big flow on from that, and it's good for business. If you're in a corporation or in an enterprise environment, there's also benefits. And first and foremost, often if your app is easy to get started, you get less questions. And that leads to better cooperation between departments, better relationships, and better results. And the end product or the outcome of that is that it's good for your customers, good for your team, and good for the company. So when I was researching a user onboarding and working with it in the past, I was looking for a number, a statistic to sort of indicate how important this is. And I came upon 86%. And 86% is the number of mobile users that never return to an app after they've downloaded and tried it once. So I don't know about you, but personally, I think that's terrifying. And it really points to the fact that business is hard. If the vast majority of people only try an app once and then move on, business and building apps, it's really, really hard. And that was focused on the Android marketplace, but the numbers are probably similar for iOS as well. And websites are a little bit different, but there's great fall-offs at different points. I've heard that when somebody's trying to make a purchase through an e-commerce store on a website, if they hit a sign-up at the purchase page, quite often half of people just don't follow through with it. So this is very, 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 very hard. So if people are trying the apps, this is a huge opportunity for us because there's so many out there nowadays, startups, apps, services, and SaaS websites, that if somebody has heard of our app and finds it, this is a huge opportunity. And we really need to try to take advantage of this. So user onboarding is really, really important. And helping our users get started is important, but it's not easy. And it's easy to do wrong. So there's one common problem that you would see, and over the past few years, is really annoying tooltip tours or hotspot tours. And I don't know if people remember Slack. Probably a year ago, I remember when it got really popular and a whole bunch of local Slack sites popped up where everybody was joining them, where you were forced through this user onboarding, which was a restrictive hotspot tour, where they were trying to teach you how to use Slack. But if it was your first time using it, it might have been fairly helpful. But if you've used it more than once, you had to click about 1 million times just to dismiss everything or just try to get through it. And that can be really annoying. And one of the interesting things is Slack has moved away from that style. They've really tuned it and improved it a lot. So I imagine they found that probably impacted their adoption. So they iterated and they've improved it since. And we'll look at a couple more examples of what they did later. Another problem is apps with very steep learning curves. And the example here is Photoshop, but it kind of applies to just about anything in the Adobe Creative Suite. That really powerful, really rich, feature-rich applications, but they're really hard to use. They've got just about every feature, including the kitchen sink. And I just think of my dad that if he takes photos, he loves photography. If he wants to try and make a photo pop, Adobe has really made their pricing approachable now with the subscriptions where it's a lot cheaper. And most people have heard of Photoshop. So if he has a crack at this, just signs up, loads up a photo in Photoshop, clicks through the menus, and sort of explores, he's not going to want to know what he's doing. He'll close it and just call him up and cancel the subscription. And that same principle can happen to the applications that we build. Another issue is when you're starting out with applications, a common problem. A lot of times they don't have any data. That's common for a lot of mobile apps, desktop apps, even websites, where you start using it and it's empty. And as a new user, it's difficult to sort of figure out what to do next, and you click around, but it's not very helpful. The example here is Octopus, and this is an older version, but when you first started it, like once you've installed the server and you jump into it, you click through the web portal, you're looking at a lot of blank pages. And there was a little line of helper text, but it just made things harder than they needed to be. And again, if somebody's trying our product, if there's things that we could do to help them get up and running quickly, that'll be a lot more beneficial for us. So there is hope. So now, we understand the pit of success and that it's really important. There is a better way. We want to help our users get started. So what is this aha moment, and how does it relate to onboarding? And just one quick thing, it has nothing to do with an 80s pop band. Most products exist to make people's lives easier or better. Trying to solve some problem or trying to entertain and be fun. And both of those are both really good, valid goals. So what we need to do is think about how our product makes people better. Not what it does, but the impact that it has on their lives. So the aha moment for the projects, the apps, the services that we build is the point at which users are successful with them. But it's also the point where they grok your product. They understand the value it offers and how it makes their lives easier or better. And it really goes from, people go from, I'm clicking through, I'm exploring to, oh, yeah, I get it. If this app can save me, say, 2 hours a week, it's definitely worth paying for. And it really is a personal thing. How does it improve their life? And yeah, seriously. So how do you find the aha moment for your own apps, the projects you're working on? And this sounds really wishy-washy, but just ask yourself, thinking about your product, what do you make me better at? So let's look at some examples. So a couple of years ago, I built my own transit app for Brisbane, for Southeast Queensland. It was called Everyday Transit, and while it wasn't a great commercial success, it was a fun project. It was a lot of fun to build. So this was a simple transit app, but the aha moment for it was you arrive at a train station or you're getting close to a train station, you pop up the app and you see this dashboard. And the key thing that it showed you was the number of minutes until your next train. And then you had an interactive bit where you could see the last train, see if it's still close, or upcoming ones after that. So what do you make me better at? It's to save time by not missing your train. But if we personalize it, you can get something like, whoa, I can get home quickly and have more time with my family if I rush to the platform and catch my next train. But what isn't it? It's not train timetable dashboard based on your location. So it really is that personal nature. It's the point when, wow, this app is valuable, or this service is valuable. Yeah, I definitely want to pay for that. And here's another example. So this is Octopus Deploy. And if people aren't familiar with Octopus, it's a friendly deployment automation tool. And it's in a more complex domain. It's developer tools in that space. And the point of the aha moment for it, you have to do a few things to get through it. You have to set up your infrastructure, create a project, define your deployment process. But at the point where you deploy your first release, that's the point where you sort of grok the product. You've automated your first deployment, and you sort of get it. So what do you make me better at? Fast, repeatable, and reliable deployments. Let's personalize that. Again, it's something like, whoa, I don't have to deploy on evenings and weekends again. I can deploy whenever I want, safely, so I can play that Xbox I want at DDD more with my friends. But what isn't it? It's not deployment automation tool that orchestrates deployments to remote servers. Again, it's that point where they really get your product. They can grok it. They understand the value. So we understand why it's important for our customers to fall into the pit of success. And we found our aha moment. It's the point at which our customers understand the value of our products. So how do we go from point A, which is sort of awareness and trying a product, all the way to point B, which is reaching that success point, the aha moment? Sorry, and how do we do that? We sell the dream. So user onboarding is like climbing a mountain. It's a journey, and there's lots of milestones along the way. And we want to help our customers understand that journey and the steps involved. So one really good way is to just build a list of steps moving towards that aha moment. And as developers, very often we're building apps, we're building products, and we're doing it feature after feature, iteration after iteration, and we can really get deep into the features. So it can be really, really useful just to take a step back, set up the app exactly like a new user would, or even watch a new user, go through the app, and move towards that success point. And when you do that, there's a lot of details that you may not realize. There's the big steps, but there's also small ones. So pay attention to both of them. And you can write it all down. And you can use a text editor if you want. If you use Vim, you might not be able to save all your work. So once you've done that, you're ready to tell your customers. And there's two main things that you want to do. Number one, you want to describe the aha moment, that success point to them. But then the second thing is you want to describe the journey to getting there. You want to tell your customers how to get there and tell them the steps required to be successful. Because I think it's just human nature, and it's whether you're just going on a long drive, like a big road trip, and you want to know where you are and how much of your trip is left. But it's also, if you're working on a side project, if you're plugging along and you're doing these things on your own, if you know how you're progressing and you're keeping up to date, you stay motivated to want to reach the end. Otherwise, quite often they'll just abandon and move on. So a big tip here is we want this process to be as easy as possible. And you want to try to remove any steps and remove any friction from the process. So if you go through the steps, any that aren't required or optional, consider removing them. If they're not essential, consider removing them. And if you have a simple application, it's probably quite easy. You could 3 or 4 steps or something very straightforward. You don't have to remove anything. But if you've got a dozen or 2 dozen steps, you sort of have to evaluate them. try and group them or simplify them. How can you make that just seem more approachable? And can you defer any complicated bits that aren't required? And you can see examples of this on the web all the time. Anytime you have to provide your sign-up information, email address, email confirmations early in these setup processes are a killer. So what can you defer? Even if a lot of times when you try new services, they no longer require credit cards. You don't have to give them your credit card to try it for 30 days so that they'll automatically start billing you. They let you just have a play so that you can get used to it, you can understand and play with the product and make the decision yourself. So this is another example. So this is my little transit app. And there's two things here we want to do. We want to describe the aha moment and the steps to get there. So for the app, when you first started as a brand new user, this is the screen that you would get. And what is the aha moment? It's our transit dashboard can help you save time and frustration by catching your next train. The steps to get there. To get started, simply tap Add a Favorite Trip. Select your start and end stations, and then view your personalized dashboard. And this is a very simple example. There's a very clear call to action. So just by doing those two little steps, it helps people know what am I trying to do and what are the steps to get there. Now, Octopus is a little more complicated in that it's a deployment automation tool, and there's a lot more steps to get up and running to see the value. So let's just describe the aha moment. And the steps below introduce all the Octopus key concepts so that you can easily automate deployments for all your applications and services in a safe, reliable, and repeatable way. And then the steps to get there. What we've done, so when we were going through this process, we just built a great big list of everything, just like a new user would do to get up and running. And there's roughly 12 or maybe 14, 16 steps. So we applied that tip to remove as much friction as possible. So we removed optional steps, and we tried to simplify and group things as much as possible. So in the end, you just get 5 steps, and it's a lot easier to understand the themes, the steps to get to that aha moment, to that success point. And there's a few things along the way. We have links to helper text, and there's a clear call to action that stays updated, so hopefully it just makes it easier to get up and running. So we understand why it's important for our customers to fall into the pit of success. And we found our aha moment, and we told our customers how our product can make their lives better. We also help them understand the steps to achieve it. Now, how do we keep them motivated so they actually do it? And this is the hard part. The first thing that you can do is you can kick things off right. It's the first exposure to your app, and you can make it more approachable. Simply put, a great technique is to show them that they've already completed something. And the example up here is Octopus Deploy. So when you first get your hands onto the product, you've already installed Octopus Server. So you hit this point, this first look at Octopus, you're already one of the 5 steps, you're 20% of the way through. And it really primes your users to want to continue. You start them off engaged and interested. But the other thing is that there's only 4 steps left. You're not seeing, it's not just a giant list that's another 10 steps, which would sort of deter a lot of people. So it's a lot more approachable. You're kicking things off with momentum, and it seems like there's not as much work left. Now, next up is progress, progress, progress. And I think this step is absolutely critical. Excuse me. Like anything, you want to show your users progress, and it's a key bit of motivation. You want to make it visual, and that helps to keep them engaged and interested. So the example here again is Octopus. And when you start your onboarding process, so there's several of those steps that you have to explore. When you move off the main page, we have a progress bar. And no matter which order you do things, we seek to keep you informed of your progress. So anytime you accomplish something, there's a nice little animation that completes, then nice little circles down the bottom, and you get green checks as you progress through. The other thing that we do is to have a button that, in order, it takes you to the next step in the process. So the whole time, we're just trying to keep you up to date of where you are in this process, but also make it very easy to go to the next step. Another example, so this is very common, and you would see this in a lot of social sites, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., and Dropbox is a good example, where they show you a progress bar. And so just by signing up to Dropbox, you can see we have 2 of 8 steps. You're already 25% there. And so at this point, you've already completed some steps. So number 1, you're priming them, or you're primed to want to continue. But you can also understand the steps to being successful, to fully understanding the value of the service. Another point, sort of building upon progress, is to be flexible. And it's also, I think, quite important in that people are different. You want to let them explore. And so if you think about, if you go buy some shelves from IKEA, you get a flat pack box, and there's sort of 2 main types of people when you open things up to install it. There's one, and it's similar to me, where I take everything out, I've got the instructions, and I go step by step by step by step. And at the end, you've got the nice built shelf. And then the other type is people who like to just sort of lay things out and just sort of explore. They just start putting part of it together. They put another part. They hit a point where they got to look to the instructions, figure out the next thing. And at the end, they also have a nice shelf built. People are different. We want to let them be different, let them explore. So if you look at this example, this was Slack, and I mentioned earlier that their previous onboarding process forced you through a more restrictive, sort of like wizard-like onboarding process through hotspots. You had to go from one to another, to another, to another, and it was very slow and hard to progress through. Whereas this screenshot, I did an onboarding to get this screenshot, and they've simplified it greatly. Each step in the process, you can close quickly, and some, if you decide, you can learn more and go through more information. But also, just pick and choose what's right for you. They're flexible. And so I think really they probably noticed, or they learned, that their previous process was impacting their adoption. And so they iterated. Octopus Deploy is similar in that we have, there's 5 steps, the 4 steps where there's something to do. There's some people who will go through step by step by step by step. And then there's other people who they just want to dive straight into the project or into the product. They'll create a project and start doing everything, trying to figure out their deployment process. They're trying to do the automation. And then they'll fill out the necessary parts as they go to make that happen. And in both cases, you will deploy a release. You will be successful. But you don't want to be overly restrictive. You want to be flexible so you don't annoy your users. Because if you think about it, if you don't have to force people through an order. Just let them do the way they see fit. And in the end, I think this keeps them engaged, keeps them motivated to get to that success point. Another point that's not often thought about, it's becoming more common, is empty state. And that's that point where when you start new application, or when you start using a brand new application or service, quite often there's no data whatsoever. So instead of seeing all these blank empty pages, and quite often if you you can hit pages where there's a negative message, say, no records found. That's not as helpful. So what you can do is you can fill the blank space. You can make it visual and just keep things positive. And that simple little change can maintain engagement. And so in the example here, this is what Octopus does. On all of our key screens now, we have empty state. And what we're seeking to do is, number one, educate and provide a bit of guidance as to what you're doing in that area. And we're lucky we have a great designer, so we have nice little visuals to, well, number one, fill the space, but also just be a bit pleasant. And it all works to maintain engagement and momentum. Keep moving towards that success point. Another example here is Dropbox again. And so this is, if you sign up for Dropbox and you access their website, this is what you see. This is the home page. And what you normally would see here is a list of your most recent files that you've interacted with. But if you haven't already, that would just be empty. And in a lot of common systems, this is where you would see that negative message, where it be no records found, or it could be no recent items found. But instead, what they've done, they've got a cute little illustration of a dog wagging its tail. And number one, that's very pleasant. That makes you smile. And a very positive message. Items you have recently viewed will show up here. And so it's a nice way to fill the space, keep it visual, keep it positive, and maintain engagement. Another smaller point is that as you go through, a very subtle but very nice thing is to celebrate success. If there's key points through your onboarding as somebody's getting started, and if they hit one of those, you can just pop up a nice high five, just something positive and something visual. It's positive reinforcement to continue on through the journey. And it's also very common at the end to show it at the end. Like, congratulations, you've reached that success point, you've reached the aha moment, and you do something positive. And so this example here is just what Octopus shows. We've got a little HTML5 animation where a balloon bounces and some fireworks. And we just say, congratulations, happy deployments from the team at Octopus. Just something positive, and hopefully they'll go on and continue using the product, explore it more, and again, put them on the road to purchasing or subscribing. Another example, does anybody use Help Scout? None? It's a customer support, sort of email support product. And it's a wonderful product. It makes managing tickets and support email very, very easy. And anytime you're working through a number of tickets, when you clear one of your inboxes or clear all of your tickets, they have really good empty state. So they've got a range of illustrations from a trophy and different nice little things. They fill that space, and it's very positive, very visual. But every once in a while, when you clear an inbox, you get HTML confetti. And it's just wonderful to see. It's a subtle thing. But when you do that, you're just doing your normal day-to-day work. And then you get this really nice celebration, positive message reinforces. And then you can go on, continue with your work. So there's one technique, a sort of a final technique, to keep people motivated, and it's called loss aversion. I don't have an example of it, but it's a little bit dodgy, and it's used in a lot of SaaS web apps, which sort of leads me to believe that it does work. So loss aversion, how it works is if you're signing up or you're exploring a new service, The services let you jump straight into the product. They help you get started. They progress you through the onboarding as quickly and easily as possible. But at the very end, and this is where it can be a bit dodgy, in that where you want to save your work or test what you've just done, is that's when they pop up the sign up. And they get you to go through sign up, email confirmation, and all of that stuff, just at the very end, before you can actually, or generally, before you can use what you've just done. And the loss aversion, it's one of those little psychological things where people don't want to lose when they've invested time and effort into something. They don't want to lose it. And so if you're trying a new product and you've gone through all this hard work to get something up and running, and you just want to see how it works, and then you get popped up with a sign up, that can be, a lot of people will continue at that point, but it does seem dodgy. So the only thing there is that you'd sort of pick the right point at which you do it, so that if people do like your service, they continue using it and they can see that value. Another tip for this, if you're embarking on a process like this, is to measure what you're doing before and after. So if it's an in-flight project, which is probably quite normal, we all work on projects, existing apps, etc. It'd be great if you had some analytics beforehand. You know how your users are progressing before, so that any changes you make, you can see the result. And there's two main questions that I'd want answered in this realm. The first one is, how long does it take for somebody to complete the onboarding? Is it something that they do instantly? Is it minutes? Is it hours? Or can you see that they come back 3 or 4 times over a week to try and figure it out? How long does it take to reach the success point? But if they don't reach that success point, where did they get stuck, or where did they stop? Because that can point you to the point that if you've got 10 steps in your onboarding process, everybody's getting stuck at point 6. Why? What you can do is you can revisit that, you can try and simplify it, and you can try and optimize it. So that try to get people through to that aha moment. And that just allows you to iterate and improve. So let's wrap up. We now understand why it's important for our customers to fall into the pit of success. And we found the aha moment for our apps. And we told our customers how our products can make their lives better. We also helped them understand the steps to achieve it. And we've learned all about a number of techniques to keep them engaged and motivated to be successful. So the final thing that I would just ask is that most of us are probably just working on a project at work or at home, but you think about what is the aha moment for your project, and even think about some of the major steps to get to that point. Basically, you think about, is there any low-hanging fruit? Are there any minor things that you could do to make a big difference to help people get through and reduce questions, reduce support, etc. And even the other benefits, which is help with people wanting to purchase, continue using, and be happy. So with that, thank you very much. That's it. And I just want to then give a quick plug. Go to dddbrisbane.com/feedback and submit it. If you have any comments, positive or negative, if it's constructive, I'd love to hear it. I always try to improve, so if there's anything you can pass on, that would be appreciated. So at this point, any questions? So correct me if I'm wrong, the question was that as you're developing an application, if it's built iteratively, does that aha moment change? So the thing that I've thought about in that is that this can be applied to different components or areas and modules. And some of the techniques like empty state or showing progress, if there's logical models in a very large application where you're going into different subsections, you can apply a lot of the principles to each module, different area. And some of them, if it is being built up, some more complex applications, you kind of need the entire thing to get to that like the point where people really would understand, oh, yeah, this app saves me a lot of time or makes my life better in some way. And so sometimes it could be that you add this later. And it makes a lot of sense that even that you learn how people use your applications before you craft something like this. But thank you very much.